Welcome to Card Market Catalyst, your go-to source for everything related to football card investing. Whether you're tracking the latest market trends or looking for the next big prospect, we've got you covered. If you enjoy the insights, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the show, and follow us for all our future episodes.
Okay, let's dive into this. You know, the entire football world is already locking its eyes on the 2026 World Cup. I mean, millions of fans are eagerly awaiting new heroes, historic moments, and the dawn of a completely new era on the pitch. But while everyone's attention is fixed on the grass, there's actually a totally different, incredibly high-stakes game already being played out in the background. And that game, it's happening right on the football trading card market. So take a look at your own collection right now. Seriously, do you have any of the so-called stars of tomorrow sitting in your portfolio? Because right now, so many investors are buying up young talent, banking on these massive future payouts. But we have to ask ourselves, what actually happens when those sky-high expectations burst and the reality of a player's performance falls brutally short? Today, we are breaking down players who are still carrying the price tag of a future superstar, even though their development has pretty much completely stalled out. We're looking at cards that could face a massive, really painful drop in value right after the World Cup. Now, before we start naming names, just a really quick reminder, everything in this explainer is my personal opinion and my own assessment of the market. This is strictly for entertainment, not financial or investment advice. Always do your own research. All right, let's get to the list. So here is our grand roadmap. We've gone ahead and identified the top 10 most overvalued players in the card market ahead of the 2026 World Cup, and we've assigned them exact risk scores, ranging from a moderate 6 all the way up to a glaring 9.5 out of 10. And to help protect your investments, we are going to break these 10 players down into 3 distinct risk tiers. Let's move to and see how this builds. First up, extreme crash risk. Second, high-risk efficiency traps. Third, medium risk. And finally, we'll wrap up with hype versus reality. Section 1, extreme crash risk. This is literally the highest danger zone in the hobby right now. The players in this tier are trading purely on nostalgia and past promises, which is creating these massive bubbles. You can see Neymar sits at the absolute peak with a 9.5 risk score, followed by Joao Felix at 9 and Leroy Sane at 8.5. Let's be real, Neymar is the single most dangerous name here. His card market, it isn't driven by this current performance anymore. It's running entirely on this romantic narrative of a last World Cup. I mean, yes, Brazil called him back, but look at his squad reality. He's sharing an attack with Vinicius Jr., Endrick, Rafinha, Gabriel Martinelli, and Matheus Cunha. He is simply no longer the automatic center of gravity for that team. And his physical decline from his superstar peak is a huge market psychology issue. The question isn't whether he can break a game open anymore, it's whether he can even get minutes or, stay physically stable over 7 grueling World Cup games. Because if he ends up just being a bench player, or worse for his cards, if Brazil actually looks better without him, that last magical moment narrative completely vanishes. And honestly, if that happens, his hobby value collapses like a poorly stacked card stand at a convention. Pre-World Cup hype is strong, but the smart strategy here is to sell into that hype rather than buying in now. That brings us to João Felix, who is honestly the ultimate card market ghost. He's always visible, but you can never quite grab him. His market has treated him like a future Ballon d'Or winner since 2019. That was the big promise, right? Well, the reality is that he is completely stuck between positions in Portugal's squad. He isn't a true center forward, he isn't a classic number 10, and he's definitely not a dominant winger. Portugal has a massive amount of offensive quality, and Felix actually has to stand out to justify his sky-high prices. Holding on to his expensive rookies is brutally risky, simply because those prices still reflect a promise from 5 years ago. And then we have Leroy Sané, who is currently caught in what I like to call Germany's offensive shark tank. Just look at the offensive material Germany has right now. It is staggering. Musiala, Wirtz, Havertz, Voldema, Undav, Bayer, Lewelling, Lennart Karl. Sané's position is absolutely no longer that of an undisputed star. In fact, reports are even describing him as someone who just has to accept a backup or joker role. And in the hobby, let me tell you, a narrative shift from limitless potential to missed expectation is absolute poison, especially as a player hits 30 years old. The hobby loves young, upward trajectories. It absolutely does not love players sliding into a backup role. Sure, he still has the Bayern and Germany history and that amazing highlight reel speed. If he has a great World Cup, yeah, he could spike. But if he has a weak tournament or sees very little playing time, we are looking at a severe repricing moment. So the clear strategy here for Sané, sell hype spikes. No big long-term bets. All right, moving on to Section 2, high risk, the efficiency traps. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the reality check for players in this tier. They have raw talent, but they're plagued by structural flaws the hobby just tends to ignore. Take Darwin Núñez. 6. That is the number of goals he scored in 1,251 league minutes for Al Hilal in the 25-26 season. Darwin is basically the meme stock of the card market right now. He brings pace, power, and just pure chaos. And because Uruguay lacks Suarez and Cavani now, he's incredibly important to their offense. But in the hobby, you actually have to put the ball in the back of the net. People are buying his explosive potential, not his reality. If he scores twice at the World Cup, his market jumps. If he misses big chances, his value plummets. It's loud, it's fast, but it really lacks substance. Next up in this tier is Rafael Leão. Visually, his cards are a collector's dream. He's got the pace, the dribbling, that cool modern aesthetic, and he plays for Milan in Portugal. His highlight reel is 20 minutes of absolute world-class action. But the consistency trap here is the 40 minutes where he completely vanishes from the game. His prices reflect a player right on the verge of ultimate superstar status. But if Portugal's offense ends up running through Ronaldo, Bruno Fernandes, or Bernardo Silva, and Leão only gives us a few isolated, flashy scenes, his highly priced market is incredibly vulnerable. Rounding out our high-risk tier is Gio Reyna. He really represents the perfect hobby cocktail, right? Dortmund, USA, young, technically gifted, and the World Cup stage being in the US is going to be massive. But the foundation of his actual playing time is dangerously thin. The market paid premium prices for a future that injuries and fluctuating playing time have basically prevented from arriving. If he starts and delivers on home soil, the upside is huge. But if he stays on the bench, the market is going to realize it's still paying prices based on old hopes. It is a highly, highly speculative play. Okay, Section 3, medium risk. This is where roles dictate the price. The players in this tier aren't absolute busts, but their hobby relevance is heavily suppressed by their guaranteed minutes. Take Gavi, for example. The talent is unquestionable, but his golden boy hype bubble was built super early on. Now he's returning from major injury, and he's sharing the spotlight with a massive wave of Spanish talent: Lamine Yamal, Pedri, Nico Williams, Cubarsí. Because he's forced to share that spotlight, his individual hobby premium naturally dilutes. Then there's Kai Havertz, who presents a very subtle risk. Tactically, he is incredibly valuable. I mean, coaches absolutely love his flexibility. But to the card market, he is practically invisible. Collectors just don't pay a premium for work rate against the ball, you know? They pay for clear heroes, pure strikers, and viral wingers. Havertz could have a fantastic World Cup for Germany, but that won't automatically translate into hobby relevance. My advice? Only buy if his prices sit well below superstar levels. Marcus Thuram is also swimming in a shark tank, this time over in France. Just visually stacking these massive names, Dembélé, Olise, Barcola, Doué, Cherki, Mateta, proves exactly how limited Thuram's upside really is. At 28, the rookie fantasy is completely gone. And when you're competing for collector attention against those guys, plus Kylian Mbappé, who alone sucks up almost all the market's energy, your spotlight is severely restricted. Even a really good tournament likely won't turn Thuram into a long-term hobby magnet. Finally, let's briefly look at Memphis Depay. He is historically important for the Dutch national team, for sure, but his hobby relevance is extremely low. There is zero rookie fantasy here and no top 5 global star narrative. He is a classic short-term tournament trade. Some buyers might pay for a final Orangier narrative, but I promise you it will cool off incredibly fast the exact moment the tournament ends. He is just not a long-term investment. Section 4. Fotsit. Hype versus reality. So the crucial point is, how do we actually bring all these analytical takeaways together? How do we navigate this landscape safely? Well, the history of the card market always shows us that hype builds prices, but actual performance either confirms or destroys them. So here's your game plan. Step 1, evaluate optimism versus reality. Has a player's price already factored in way too much future success? Step 2, question their team roles. Are they the actual focal point, or are they just lost in a shark tank? And step 3, ignore pure nostalgia. The market is brutally honest, and past promises age terribly. Just one final quick reminder here. This explainer is designed to spark your critical thinking, not dictate your financial moves. Not every player on this list is going to fail. Some of them might actually play the tournament of their lives. But that is exactly where the risk lies. The market prices in the future long before it actually happens. Prices can collapse just as fast as they build. So please, always do your own research. Now, I really want to hear from you. Which players do you currently consider to be the absolute most overvalued? And whose cards are you looking to take profits on before the World Cup kicks off? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. I would love to see your analysis on this. Thank you so much for joining me for this breakdown. Keep your portfolio sharp, and I will see you in the next explainer.
Thanks for listening to Card Market Catalyst. If you enjoyed today's deep dive into football card investing, make sure to like and subscribe.